I'm Rohini Nilekani, and I've set up a foundation called Arghyam, which means offering in Sanskrit. And we work on the water sector, primarily on domestic water security. And we fund a lot of NGOs that are working with communities to ensure water security in their areas. And we do a little bit of livelihood work. We're also we also facilitate the India Water Portal, which is an online platform for knowledge dissemination and new knowledge creation open to all. We're also doing some of our own work in the urban water sector. So I think water has become very critical to the development debate in India. We are naturally, because of our population growth and limited water resources, they are finite though renewable obviously, we are moving towards water stress. Per capita water availability is dropping. We are seeing very large water quality issues developing because of over extraction of groundwater for one thing, and the pollution of our surface water bodies with both industrial effluents and agricultural runoff and human waste. So we have a lot of challenges that are increasing, and because of that also local conflicts around water are increasing. So there's a lot of work to do on the ground, working with the people, working with public policy to make sure we have a more water secure future.
I wondered if you could say something but also about dams, which have been a huge subject of controversy over the last 20, 30 years indeed.
Yeah, actually the dam controversy is pretty much receded from the the World Commission on Dams that came up. In India today, actually new dams are getting created in the northeast region of India, where there are many for both hydel and for water supply. It's happening at a quite fast rate in some of the smaller northeastern states. It's a matter of concern to the local communities there, because I don't know if we are aware of how much ecosystem damage there will be in the long run. But that is going on. But the rest of the country now, I don't think there are any more dams. We are really focusing more on smaller holding structures, storage structures. And there's a whole new debate in India that the groundwater reservoirs themselves act like dams to hold the water. So if we are able to manage our aquifers better, if we don't do so much overdraft and we recharge them, then actually that is like a large reservoir.
Yes, it's interesting because it's a more sort of ecocentric view, isn't it? Sort of local things rather than these huge, expensive, top-down creations, which often seem to benefit, actually, not the people they're theoretically supposed to benefit.
Yes, there's enough evidence that all this massive public investments in surface water irrigation in India have actually not yielded the results that were expected. One is at the tail end, you're finding that the water doesn't reach. And also, in spite of this massive surface water irrigation superstructure, 60 to 70% of Indian agriculture is running on groundwater today. And we don't really have effective groundwater legislation. So there are some serious structural issues there.
And what about, you also talked about the local, the village level, the small city level, projects, that some of which you fund or you know about. Could you give maybe an example or two?
I think we must not just emphasize the negative, because in India over the last few years in the rural sector, we have seen a dramatic improvement in access to lifeline water. The rural drinking water system set up primarily by the government, and they work. There's not piped water supply like the Western world expects 24/7, but there is enough water for people. The distances that women used to have to walk have reduced in many, many parts of the country. So there is improvement on that side. There is some improvement on sanitation, which also affects the quality of water. We have gone up in the last decade from to about 40 to 50% coverage, sanitation coverage, whereas it was hardly 5 to 6 just less than 20 years ago. So those are the achievements. The long way to go is to make sure that other externalities don't come in the way, so that when a village, for example, or a community has managed to create a somewhat equitable and sustainable way of keeping their water bodies, etc., intact and protecting them and stuff. Something else can happen in the sense, a mining company can come or any other industrial activity can come and simply really completely destroy the community's building up of so much of social capital to do that. So those are the kind of governance and management issues that are cropping up. That's why conflicts are beginning to happen.
So it's a kind of a power issue, really, isn't it?
I think it is a power issue. In India, a lot of the issues are about who gets to make the decisions. And in the spirit of our 73rd and 74th Amendment to the Constitution, we want to devolve power to the third level of government. But I think we are very much in transition. It's not quite happened yet.
What do you mean by the third level of government?
That is the urban local bodies and the village local bodies, the panchayats, the panchayat system that we have, where groups of villages are supposed to be self-governing elected councils. They have been set up all over the country, but the powers and the financial powers and the functionaries have not yet got devolved. So sometimes local people are affected because decisions are made somewhere else. So those are the kind of struggles that are happening in the water sector.
It seems like a very, very old story from 75, 80 years ago when Gandhi was talking about having the local structures rather than this top-down structure. And it's like the country, unfortunately, chose the top-down structure and is now having to go back to what he said.
Yeah. So, obviously there are some things that need to be at the local level, but we do need, in such a vast and diverse country like India, we do need a very strong federal central government as well. So it's not that I don't want to romanticize the notion that you can have locally self-dependent village republics of Gandhiji's dream. But certainly we need much more powers to devolve so that though they have the obligation to provide water, they don't have the they have responsibility without power. So decision making on, say, protection of a water source that is upstream, the ability to negotiate with, say, an upstream community to protect their water resource, or do some kind of consensus on tariffs, operations and management, sink funds. Those kinds of things are beginning to happen, but we have a long way to go.
So at One World, sometimes we say the bigger structures, the top-down structures, need to give power to, rather than have power over so much. And it sounds like that's what you're calling for, a bit more power to, enablement and empowerment from the top, so that the people at the bottom can take their responsibilities, but with rights as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we hope that the devolution, as it keeps happening, and in some states you can see it happening much better than in others. But yes, water is very, very much coming to the center of this debate, because across the country now we have women elected as local body panchayat members, often through a quota affirmative action system, and you find that women bring water to the table very, very quickly. And they, for example, if a Gram Panchayat has to decide about where the money should go, the fact that women need better domestic water, more reliable, adequate, safe water, is coming up more now in those debates, which is a great thing. I think it's a young and dynamic country. All our people want to do better for themselves. They seem to be ready to take, personal risks. It looks like there's a feeling of optimism, but there are real challenges about the natural resource base, and if we are able to protect our natural resource base, then I think we can have more inclusive growth. Otherwise, what happens is, when you have economic growth rushing ahead in one way, you're not looking at the ecological base on which the economy depends, and you can have pretty much of a problem.
And how does climate change affect all this?
If the predictions are right, it's going to be very, very challenging. If the predictions of the scientists are going to come true, then we are going to see a really massive problems in the northern part of as the Himalayan glaciers, if they're really going to melt at that rate, if we are really going to see the Indian monsoon have far more variation and intensification than now, then I think we're in real trouble because our food security will get affected.
And what about the coastal regions with the hurricanes and the sea level rise and extreme weather events?
If it happens, but let's hope that the scientists are wrong. Or the only thing I can say is, because we don't know what's going to happen, but the only thing I can say is, in some sense, India is very resilient. Our people know how to adapt to extreme situations because we don't have those safety networks in place where people are protected from extreme drought and extreme floods. So people somehow know how to cope. But I hope they're not challenged further. It's going to be very tough.
Could you say something, Rohini, about the privatization of water? Because this is something I know that civil society worries about in many countries, that it's going to, again, rob the poor and, give the water to the rich.
There is a very sharply polarized debate in India about the privatization of water. The government is planning water sector reforms at different levels, and sometimes civil society activists worry that it's not being done transparently, that consensus is not getting built up. And at one side there's a very extreme response that there should be no private involvement in public services such as water. And there is, on the other side, quite a push to say that government does not have the capacity to invest in the kind of water infrastructure we are going to need as our cities develop. So right now it's a polarized and bitter debate in India. I don't think anybody is talking about outright privatization of water assets or anything at all. But there is definitely outsourcing of several aspects of the water and sanitation and sewerage waste management space happening quite rapidly in India now.
Well, it's been marvelous listening to you, really, because you say everything so clearly and so with so much passion and knowledge, and it's marvelous. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.